Hello guys, my name is Bahroz and welcome to my channel. I'm a career coach and in this video I'll walk you through sample questions from PI cognitive assessment and how to answer them. We know that the key challenge isn't just getting the questions right, it's getting them right in the shortest time possible. For each question that I will go over, I'll also share the best tips, tricks to help you answer it quickly and efficiently. Now previously I've made a video explaining the format of PI cognitive assessment along with the strategies to ace it. If you haven't seen that video yet, I highly recommend checking it out first before you go through this video. Also, I have a playlist on my channel dedicated to PI cognitive assessment where I also share other sample questions and how to answer them and ace your test. One special ask before we jump into the video, which is in case you find any value from this video, please press the like button as this keeps me motivated, and also subscribe to the channel because on this channel I post content pertaining to how you can achieve success in your career and build wealth. If any of these topics are of interest to you, then this channel is right for you. Now let's quickly talk about what is PI cognitive assessment. PI cognitive assessment is a job test which measures your ability to process complex information and solve problems quickly. The test evaluates three main areas of cognitive ability. So I will be sharing sample questions for each function. The first one is verbal reasoning. What is verbal reasoning? Verbal reasoning in this test isn't about reading comprehensions. It's about how well you recognize word patterns, relationships, and logical connections. There are three types of verbal reasoning questions. And what I will be doing is I will be talking about what are those each types, and then under each types, what are the questions you can expect and how you can go about answering those questions. So number one is word analogy. Under word analogy, you'll be asked to identify the relationship between two words and find another pair that follows the same pattern. Now under word analogy, the sample question I have is strings is to guitar, as options are wood is to cello, piano is to keys, bars is to xylophone, violin is to flute. Here the correct answer is bars is to xylophone. And the reason is strings are the components that produce sound in a guitar. Similarly, bars are the components that produce sound in a xylophone. Each pair follows the pattern of a critical component that is essential for producing sound in a musical instrument. The other options don't fit this specific pattern. Let's say wood is to cello. While wood is a material used to make cellos, it isn't the specific part of the cello that produces sound. Piano is to keys. This relationship is reversed. Keys are part of the piano. Violin is to flute. These are both musical instruments, but the comparison doesn't follow the same logic. Another example I have or question I have is to yearn is to wish, much as to flame is to, disrupting, furious, hot, sweat. Here the correct answer is furious. The relationship between to yearn and to wish is that yearning is an intense or strong form of wishing. Similarly, flame suggests an intense or strong form of being furious, like a burning anger. Disrupting doesn't fit because it's more about causing disorder, not emotions. Hot refers to temperatures, not the emotional intensity linked to flame. Sweat is a physical reaction, not a direct emotional state. Furious aligns best with the flame because both convey intensity, just like yearn does for wishing. Here it is also important, or one suggestion is that you can go about eliminating. So first you see disrupting, is it yes or no? No. Cross. Hot, cross. Sweat, cross. So now you're only left with the option which is furious. Now the most important tip or trick that I would want to lay down for you before we go into any of the sample questions is the best way to ace this test is to practice. What I've done is I went on the web and looked for different websites where I can find practice questions, practice tests that you can make use of in order to practice for this test. And here is the website that I found which mimics or which has sample questions and tests which mimics the original test. I will leave the link to that website in the description of this video. The most important benefit of practicing is not just that you will be able to get more questions to practice, but also when you practice a test online, you feel the pressure of the test itself. If you go without practicing in the exam, then you lose like 10-15 seconds just by adapting yourself to where is the time, how would the questions look like, the format and everything. How about you get that over with first? You go and practice an online test so you exactly know the pressure that you will be facing and you are able to prepare for that pressure when you are in the final test. Hence, I highly recommend that you practice online practice tests before you appear in the test. Not just practice the examples or the questions or see how you can solve the examples that I'm sharing here, but practice an online test. Now, the next type of questions that you will receive in verbal reasoning is antonyms. Under antonyms, for this question type, you're to choose the word that means the exact opposite of the given one. And here are some sample questions I have for antonyms. Choose the word that is most nearly opposite to the word in the capital letters. Brash. So the answer is dull, polite, arrogant, or callous. The correct answer is polite, and here is why. Brash means bold, rude, or important. Someone who acts recklessly or without regard for others. The opposite would be a word that conveys respectfulness or restraint. Dull is unrelated. It refers to lack of excitement or sharpness. Polite is the best choice because it directly contrasts with being brash. Politeness implies thoughtfulness and courtesy. Arrogant is similar to brash rather than opposite, and callous means emotionally insensitive, which is also not a direct opposite of brash. Hence, polite is our right answer. The next sample question I have is the opposite of injure is which of the following? Assure, risk, fertilize, cure. Here the answer is cure. And the reason why is because injure means to cause harm or damage. The opposite would be something that heals or repairs the harm. The cure means to restore health or fix an injury, making it the best opposite. Now, the next section under verbal reasoning is formal logic, and this is the third type of questions you will receive under verbal reasoning. For formal logic questions, you will be asked to evaluate statements using logical rules and determine what conclusions must be true based on the given information. And here is a sample question I have. Not every conference attendee is a physician. Everyone at the conference who is a doctor is an expert. So here what I want you to do is I want you to write it down in an equation. Not everyone or not every conference attendee is a physician. So conference attendee CA is not equal to physician. Everyone at the conference who is a doctor is an expert. So conference doctor CD equals to an expert. There are several uncertified doctors present at this seminar. The meeting has several professionals who are certified. This is a conclusion. Can it not be determined? Conclusion follows or conclusion doesn't follow. Here the answer is conclusion does not follow. Assumption 1. Not every conference attendee is a physician, which means some attendees may not be doctors or may not be physicians. So you have to conclude what does it mean by reading every statement you read. Assumption 2, everyone at the conference who is a doctor is an expert. What this means is all doctors present are experts, but this does not confirm whether they are certified professionals. They are experts. Assumption 3, there are several uncertified doctors present at the seminar. What this means is this confirms that some doctors are not certified. The conclusion states the meeting has several professionals who are certified. We know there are uncertified doctors, but nowhere in the assumptions does it confirm that there are certified professionals at the meeting. Since we lack any explicit mention of certified professionals, the conclusion logically does not follow from the given assumptions. Hence, the correct answer is conclusion does not follow. The next sample question is, with assumptions, most technicians work on the first floor. Second is all accountants work on the second floor. Third is no secretaries work on the third floor. Conclusion, Rose, a technician, works on the third floor. If the assumptions are true, is the conclusion cannot be determined correct or incorrect? Well, the correct answer is cannot be determined based on the given information. Now, why? According to the first assumption, most technicians work on the first floor. This means, again, you have to think what each statement means. This means that at least one technician does not work on the first floor. Hence, Rose may or may not work on the third floor. Therefore, the conclusion cannot be determined on the information that is provided. The next type of questions that you can receive in a PI cognitive assessment test is numerical reasonings. These questions assess your ability to interpret numbers, analyze data, and apply logical thinking. These will be based on high school math knowledge. You might not need advanced calculus to answer them, but you do need to make sure that you have a good grasp of things like percentages, fractions, and decimals, as well as basic arithmetic. The first type of question under numerical reasoning would be number series. For number series, you look at a sequence of numbers, recognize the pattern, and find the next number. So let's take a sample question on number series. What would be the next number in the following series? 0.25, 0.5, 2.557. The options are 14, 17, 34, 22. The correct answer is 14. The logical rule behind this series is an arithmetic function. Multiplication followed by addition. So the first number is being multiplied by 2. So 0.25 becomes 0.5. And then 2 is added to a number to become the third. So 0.25 multiplied by 2 is 0.5. 0.5 plus 2 is 2.5. 2.5 doubling, which is 2.5 into 2 is 5. And then add 2. So once we multiplied by 2, once we add 2. Multiply, add 2, multiply, add 2. So 2 is being used, but once it's being added, then it's being multiplied. Next sample question I have is complete the sequence as follows. 1, 3, 12, 60. What is the answer? Looking at the multiplication pattern here. So what is happening is 1 into 3 becomes 3. Then 3 into 4 becomes 12. Then 12 into 5 becomes 60. So what is happening is multiply the number with 3. Then whatever is the answer, we multiply it by 4, then we multiply that answer by 5, 6, and so on and so forth. So when we multiply it by 3, we get 3. When we multiply it by 4, we get 12. When we multiply it by 5, we get 60. When we multiply 60 by 6, we get 360. So 360 is our answer. Now the next type of questions under numerical reasoning would be math problem. In math problem, these are the type of questions where you'll solve basic arithmetic or algebra problems using numbers, percentages, or fractions. So here I have a sample question, which is which of the following is the smallest value? 0.45, 0.054, 0.09, 0.05. Here the best way to do it is look at the first digit across all of them and compare. So all of them have 0 as the first digit, which is same. So move on to the next digit, which is 4000. So we eliminate 0.45 because 0.45 is higher. Then we compare the third digit amongst all three of them, which is 595. So here we exclude 0.09 because 9 is higher than 5 and 5. Now we are left with 0.054 and 0.05. Now we compare the fourth digit. We have 4 and in the other one we have 0. So we are left with only 0.05 because that is the smallest, because here we have 54, here we have 50. 50 is smaller than 54. So 0.05 is our answer. The next question we have, or sample question I have, is select the number that corresponds to the smallest quantity out of the following: 3 by 8, 2 by 3, 3 by 4, and 1 by 6. Here what you need to do is you need to convert them into decimals. So 3 by 8 would be 0.35, 2 by 3 would be 0.66. So we know that 0.35 is smaller, so we eliminate 2 by 3. Then we have 3 by 4, which is 0.75. Again, 3 by 8 is still smaller, so we choose that. And then we have 1 by 6, which is 0.16. So we go with 1 by 6 because it is the smallest. Here another key trick to do it is look for the one which has the highest denominator and lowest numerator. And here we have 6 as the highest denominator and has 1 which is the lowest numerator. So this would be our answer. That is another quick way of picking the answer. However, this won't be as clear every time because it may be possible that you have a denominator which is highest, which is the case here, but the numerator is not the lowest amongst all, and that is when you have to pick. So pick the ones which have the highest denominator, lowest numerator, and then do the math for them. The next type of questions you'll receive under numerical reasoning is word problems. For word problems, you're to apply math concepts to real life scenarios described in text format to find the correct answer. So here a sample question I have is Jack and Jill have 44 cookies together. So you write JA plus JI equals to 44. Jack has 3 times more cookies than Jill, which means JA equals to 3 into JI. So we write these two equations. How many cookies does he have? Which means how many cookies does Jack have if he has 3 times of Jill? So here in the equation, we remove Jill and we replace it with 44 minus JA into 3. So 3 into 44 minus 3JA is 132 minus 3JA. We take 3JA on the other side and it becomes 4JA equals to 132. 132 divided by 4 equals to 33. So 33 is our answer. Here the question we have is a 180-foot drainage pipe is laid by 6 men over the course of 3 days. So it takes 3 days for 6 men to lay a pipe of 180 foot. What number of employees are required to install the same pipe in half a day? Now 180 foot doesn't matter whether it's 180 foot, 200 foot, that is irrelevant. What is relevant is it takes 6 people to do a job in 3 days. How many people will be needed to do a job in half a day? So what we will do is 3 divided by 0.5, which is 6, because there are 6 halves in 3 days. There are 6 halves in 3 days, which means we will have to do 6 times 6, which is 36. That is our answer. So we'll need 36 people, 6 times more people, because the time has been cut by 6 times. So we need 6 times more people in order to get the job done. So 3 divided by 0.5, which is 6. And then 6 into 6 men is 36. The last pillar is abstract reasoning. These questions examine your spatial awareness, analysis, and identification of visual patterns, as well as your ability to mentally rotate images. Under visual series, you'll analyze a set of images following a pattern and determine which image comes next. Here the sample question I have is, which of the following boxes should replace the question mark? So here there is a pattern in the sign or the direction of the arrow, and then there is a pattern in the color of the arrow. So black, gray, white, black. So next would be gray, because black, gray, white, black, gray, white. So we can simply eliminate B and D because they are white. We are looking for gray. Second, the arrow rotates clockwise by around 90 degrees. So in every third pattern, it rotates by 90 degrees clockwise, which means the gray will also rotate 90 degrees clockwise, which means gray will be pointing down. So C is our answer. Here the sample question I have is, which of the following boxes should replace the question mark? So again, if you see, the pattern is being repeated. So circle outside, then square inside comes again in third, which means that square outside, triangle inside will also repeat, which is option D. So that will be repeated. So we'll pick option D. This one was simple. Now comes the turn for visual analogy. Under visual analogy, you're to compare two images, identify their relationship, and select another pair that follows the same logic. Under visual analogy, we have two images here in the sample question, which is X is to Y as Z is to. So we need to figure out which image will Z is to be. So what is happening? We need to first find the relationship between X and Y. Here the relationship we see between X is to Y is that the image is getting inverted altogether. So the bottom part goes up and the top part comes down. So we will do the same with Z as well to find the next symbol or shape, which means A and B will be out because A and B are not fully inverting, and hence our answer would be C, because in C we see that the shape gets inverted fully. So here the sample question I have is, which figure below does not share the same feature as the two figures above? What we see here is both the figures have 4 sides, and we have 4 sides in A, B, C, but D has 5 sides, so D is an odd one out. Similarly, another sample question I have is, the two figures at the top share a common feature. One of the answers figure lacks the same characteristics. Which figure doesn't have the same trait as the others? So let's see what is same between the two. There is always one dot which has half white, so you should always have half white. We have it in C, we have it in A, we have it in D, but we don't have it in B because B has less than half white dot, and hence B is our answer. Thank you guys. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully after watching this video, you will be able to ace your PI cognitive test. Best of luck.